History, the study of events within time, is often thought to be the antithesis of science, which studies universal and timeless truths. So how then can history be hidden in the mathematics of bifurcation? Well, let's return to our image of the marble in the bowl. As the system's energy increases, that is, as the system is moved further away from thermodynamic equilibrium, the bottom of the bowl begins to buckle, dividing the bowl into two basins. The divide between the two basins becomes higher until we have two bowls joined at the rim. The marble can now be in only one of these bowls. As the energy input continues to increase, at some point each of the two existing bowls will in turn split into two more. But when the second split occurs, the marble has access to only 2 out of the 4 new bowls. Without some outside influence, the ball has no way of rolling up and out of its original bowl and into the other new pair of bowls. In other words, as more and more basins of attraction are created by higher and higher energy inputs, the marble can be only in an attractor that is a division of the attractor it currently occupies. The bifurcations can be thought of as a set of continually forking paths. At each fork, once a path is chosen, all other paths branching off from the path not chosen are forever inaccessible. So, in the process of self-organization, a system acquires a history. This is the path actually followed. That history constrains the future. It forecloses all future states that are not accessible from the present state. We cannot go back to a prior state and choose a different side of the fork, just as we cannot go back and live in the world that would have occurred if, say, England had defeated the American revolutionaries. Yet, at each bifurcation point, the future is open. The marble, in a sense, has a kind of choice of which path to follow. How is the choice made? There's always pure chance, especially in physical systems, and there may also be outside influences. In social systems, these may be human intentions as well. So, at a bifurcation point, a small random fluctuation in the state or structure of a system is magnified and made permanent. Prigogine calls this process order through fluctuation, and here's how he describes this point of choosing.
A system far from equilibrium may be described as organized, not because it realizes a plan alien to elementary activities or transcending them, but on the contrary, because the amplification of a microscopic fluctuation occurring at the right moment results in favoring one path over a number of equally possible paths. Under certain circumstances, therefore, the role played by individual behavior can be decisive. More generally, the overall behavior cannot in general be taken as dominating in any way the elementary processes constituting it.
Prigogine continues by describing the interplay between chance and determinism.
Self-organization processes in far from equilibrium conditions correspond to a delicate interplay between chance and necessity, between fluctuations and deterministic laws. We expect that near a bifurcation, fluctuations or random elements would play an important role, while between bifurcations, the deterministic aspects would become dominant.
The order produced through fluctuations in a bifurcating system is clearly illustrated in the urban history of the United States. In the mid-18th century, when energy inputs were low, the urban system was characterized by relatively few basins of attraction. In other words, only a few types of cities were possible. The East Coast port cities, places like Charleston, Baltimore, New York, Boston, and Portland, Maine, all were one type of city. At that time, all of those cities were relatively similar in size and economic function. But as energy inputs to the system grew rapidly, as the population of people rose and they produced more goods and services, the attractor for these cities bifurcated more than once, so that the original port city was replaced by a number of different types. Each time a city reached a bifurcation, it had to choose one fork or the other. The result is that these cities are today very different from each other in size and economic function and in their role in the national urban system. Consider Boston and Charleston. Once they were sister cities, and now they have very little in common. Peter Allen and Michel Sanglier, two of Prigoghine's colleagues, have extensively studied the way urban and economic systems evolve through self-organization. They observe that the self-organization process produces structures that are generally similar. In other words, the system of cities within one region will resemble the system in another region, with similar numbers of large cities spaced at similar distances from each other.
Of course, the exact details of the structure that evolves within a region depends on its precise history, on the particular sequence of events that actually occurred. But the broad lines of the structure engendered are always similar. For example, the number and separation of the large centers that appear are always roughly the same. But of course, the exact location and size of each center depends on the precise history of the system. The interactions of the system provide a memory of the sequence of events, a memory fossilized in the spatial structure of the system.
While cities can be understood as complex systems that are far from thermodynamic equilibrium, that is, as systems that are in a state of low entropy, they obviously are more than just thermodynamic systems. So, a degree of metaphor is involved here, and a little caution is in order. But Prigogine notes that the metaphor is a useful one. The fact remains that time is irreversible, and that this is a real feature of our world and of our experience in life.
It is not surprising that the entropy metaphor has tempted a number of writers dealing with social or economic problems. Obviously, here we have to be careful. Still, we no longer see irreversibility as a subjective impression that alienates us from the outside world, but as marking our participation in a world dominated by an evolutionary paradigm.
Charles Darwin could not have known it, but his theory of evolution is supported by the science of chaos.